恳请支持小军台湾 Plus， 期待您加入付费会员，和我们团队一起打造一个 hit 的台湾。小军台湾 Plus 从2年前在 YouTube 成立以来，感谢大家一路上的鼎力相助，让首度从电视台转战自媒体的小军姐不再孤军奋战。这是一个全新的挑战，而有了你们的陪伴，这条路走得更加的坚定，更加的踏实。目前订阅人数已经接近39万了，会员的加入更是我们的定心丸。不论是一杯咖啡的价格100元，或者是200元的心意，小军姐都敏感五内，感恩每一位支持的朋友。透过会员的支持，让我们无后顾之忧，制作高品质的影片，并且及时进行更多的直播，为大家传递国内外最重要的政经新闻。在这2年间，我们历经了沧海桑田的变化，跟无数历史性的重要时刻。从因应安倍遭到枪杀24小时紧急成立我们的平台，到台湾民主的重大选举，再到面对中共围台的军事威胁，我们始终与大家风雨同舟，邀请重磅级来宾及时解析，开辟 live show， 让关键人物与观众面对面对话。2年来，我们与大家携手同行，度过无数高山低谷。我们目前急需要您的加入，千万不要小看这100元或200元，聚沙成塔。小军姐期盼继续与您披荆斩棘，乘风破浪，因为一人难挑千斤担。但您的支持是我们前进最大的动力。我们非常需要大家有钱出钱，有力出力。创业维艰，守成更不易。最后，诚挚邀请您加入付费会员，以实际的行动力挺小军台湾 Plus， 包括小军台湾 Plus 以鞭辟入里的深入分析，传递国内外的政经新闻。Real Talk 真实对话，聚焦全球时事，直击问题核心。小军乐活 Plus 分享乐活人生，活出人生高光时刻。支持小军，让更多的精彩内容继续为您服务。恳请加入付费会员，订阅我们的频道，让世界看到台湾，让台湾走出全世界。
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Hudson Institute. And my name is Miles Yu. I'm the Senior Fellow and the Director of China Center here at the Hudson. And I really appreciate that you all coming here during this rainy Washington day. But I can see the spirit is high because the topic is very serious. The topic is, this panel today, we're going to have, it's called the Sanctioned Voices. You know, we're dealing with China, and China is a country that excels at the punishment and sanctions, and overall, that's why we call it repressive regime, repression. So I like this title very much because it's called Sanctioned Voices. China can sanction your body, can put you in jail, can put you in your long life into a very long jail term, but it cannot sanction your voices. Most importantly, cannot sanction your cause. And I think that's why we're here together, because we share the same cause and we all echo the same voices. And those voices of discontent, protest, and most importantly, for a better future of mankind, because China is an existing threat, not only for people within the Chinese sovereign domain, but also for everybody living in the world, because what we're dealing with is a completely different model of governance that is based upon principles and values contradictory to the world that we have created in the last several hundred years. This is a new world order that is very different and it's challenging. So I'm very optimistic about the future of the cause, because the voices will never be silenced. And I think, today we're very happy to have you all here to share our common sentiment. Speaking of sentiment, many of you, including all the panelists, with possible exception one, are basically sanctioned by China by name. And I said a possible exception because of one of my colleagues that we'll see here, Hudson Institute is sanctioned by China. When I first was sanctioned by China, many of my friends get really mad because they always say, why you, why not me? Because being sanctioned by the regime in Beijing is really, truly a badge of honor. So if you write your resume in a future time, if you're sanctioned, That will be the first item on the honor and award section, say sanctioned by People's Republic of China for good cause. So without further ado, I'm going to basically welcome, this event is co-hosted by Hudson Institute, but also we have good partners, the National Security Institute, and also National Endowment for Democracy, which is upstairs here. It's a huge establishment, and they're all gloriously sanctioned by China. So, so I'm going to basically turn the podium to Dr. Daniel Twining. He's president of International Republican Institute. I'm sorry, those are co-sponsored by International Republican Institute, IRI. I think, aren't you the first NGO kicked out of China by kicked out of Hong Kong, right?
We left before we got kicked out.
That's right. You left with dignity. Very good. Yeah. That's that's the sort of reverse. The George Costanza logic is not you, it's me. Yeah. Okay. So Daniel will make a brief remarks, and then we'll follow by our good friend, Joseph Wu. Joseph was the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan during the Tsai Ing-wen administration. Now he's the chairman of the General Secretary, I believe, of National Security Council, that's what it's called. And he will speak through video to participate in this panel. And then last but not least, we're going to ask Damon Wilson, who is an august person here. He is the president and CEO of National Endowment for Democracy, which is really, really sanctioned by China multiple times. So, and congratulations. Yeah, so, without further ado, I'll turn the panel to Daniel.
Thanks, Miles. Nice to see you all. We're making jokes, and I might make a few more, but of course this is a very serious topic. China is engaged in an extraordinarily global and sophisticated campaign of transnational repression. The objective is, as Miles describes it, it's not simply to preserve regime security at home. In fact, it's to silence and intimidate and censor voices abroad who do not want to live in a world governed by the values of Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party. We can kind of laugh about it, some of us, but in fact, of course, it's also, as I know you agree, Miles, dead serious if you're a Hong Konger in exile or a Uyghur or a host of others with far more direct ties to China, people who have families back home who are threatened. I was very honored to be sanctioned in 2020 alongside Marco Rubio and Tom Cotton. My college roommate's mother, who I had not seen since college, saw me on Fox News, which is how I reconnected with one of my college roommates, saying, "What is Dan Twining doing on Fox?" with Marco Rubio and Tom Cotton. IRI was sanctioned in 2019 for the good work of my colleagues who are here. My VIP meeting with Secretary Pompeo, Miles, when you were there, I got to sit in the big chair next to him as a result of being sanctioned. My chairman, Senator Dan Sullivan, called me and said, "Why you and not me?" I had a series of calls. The first call I got was actually from our friend Matt Pottinger, who was Deputy National Security Advisor, who gave me an attaboy, but also said, "Here's what you need to think about, right? No spring break in Hainan Island. Be careful about places like Cambodia, where Chinese police actually operate on the grounds, right?" So, of course, it's not a laughing matter. We're going to hear from colleagues from Xinjiang and Hong Kong, who I think have much more authority than I do to speak on this topic. But first, I think we do just want to unpack for a second, what is the Chinese ambition here sanctioning friends like Miles? My colleague Adam King was sanctioned after me. Adam, you're probably not ever going to be the CEO of Volkswagen, right? Which manufactures more cars in China than any other foreign company. Like, that's okay, but that's, what they're trying to do is not just silence and intimidate, but they're also, frankly, trying to limit people's career prospects. Luckily, in Washington, a calling card now is to be a China hawk and a China skeptic, but rewind 5 or 10 years ago, and many contractors and consultants and lobbying firms were doing quite a lucrative business, giving advice about China. Many of us were traveling to China, engaging with Chinese counterparts and friends. I even made it into the inner sanctum of Zhongnanhai once, We're not going to do that anytime soon. I think it's a shame. I still have Chinese friends we're in touch with, but if we are going to navigate a great power relationship without having a conflict, it would be quite useful for us to communicate with each other. The Chinese government, I think, made the big mistake of also sanctioning not just our senators who remain in office and are assuming prominent roles and positions, but also people like Secretary Pompeo, former Secretary of State Robert O'Brien, former National Security Advisor, our friend Matt Pottinger. I think it's a big mistake, just from a kind of diplomatic perspective. Sanctions are emblematic of an important phenomenon that I know we have so much expertise in this room that you all understand. There's a big conversation in the US, including at the political as well as the expert level and the business community, about decoupling, right? China, under Xi Jinping, made a decision to decouple from the United States some time ago. Sanctioning prominent individuals, including in leadership positions in our government, is part of that. Weaponizing this issue against individuals and important organizations like those represented here is part of that. It's part of a Chinese retreat from globalization and integration with the world, the kind of stuff many of us got excited about 10, 20 years ago. The Chinese Communist Party has made a strategic decision to go in a very different direction, making it very difficult, not only for many of us, but frankly for their own citizens, to travel with, engage with, communicate freely with the outside world. I think that's a shame. I also think it's a strategic mistake for China. At a time when global public opinion has turned very solidly against China's power and its ambitions. We see this across the board. So looking forward to this conversation today. Miles, thank you for hosting us. Proud to be here with my friends from NSI, NED, NDI, all of you. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our friend Joseph Wu, really a formidable freedom fighter and champion and a hero who really is on the front line, unlike many of us, really on the front line defending these common and universal principles that we all agree to, and a reminder of the kind of world that we want to live in. It's a kind of world where a place like Taiwan is safe, and much more of the world looks a lot more like Taiwan as a free and open and prosperous society, and a lot less of it looks like the totalitarian state of China under the CCP. Thank you.
President Twining, Director Yu, Director Jaffer, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I want to thank the Hudson Institute, the National Security Institute, and the International Republican Institute for co-hosting today's event and inviting me to address this pressing issue. I'm especially proud to be here because the Hudson Institute, the International Republican Institute, Dr. Twining, Dr. Yu, and I are all on the PRC's absurd sanction list. But I have to make a clarification here. The PRC got me wrong. I have been advocating for the maintenance of the cross-strait status quo, not what the PRC has accused me of. But I still consider it to be a badge of honor and a certificate of standing up for the values we all believe in. The PRC has a long history of attempting to silence voices of critiques and opposition, both domestic and abroad. In recent years, it has even intensified its global repression, targeting Uyghurs, Tibetans, members of other ethnic and religious minority groups, Hong Kongers, human rights activists, and journalists living abroad, using tactics such as surveillance, harassment, and intimidation. It has created an environment where many fear exercising their freedom of speech and other basic rights. Moreover, recent U.S. indictments reveal a troubling escalation in the PRC's global repression, with agents harassing Chinese residents and operating covert police stations on American soil. This marks a new and alarming level of overreach. For decades, especially in recent years, the PRC has constantly threatened the people of Taiwan by means of economic coercion, diplomatic isolation, and gray zone tactics in an attempt to unilaterally undermine the status quo, jeopardizing the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific region. This escalation of regional tension has been evident in recent months as the CCP regime continues to use various pretexts to establish a new normal through aircraft intrusions into Taiwan's ADIZ, crossing of the median line in the Taiwan Strait, and major military maneuvers meant to intimidate Taiwan. In addition to military pressure, diplomatic isolation, and economic coercion against Taiwan society as a whole, the PRC also targets Taiwanese people, entities, and corporations individually. Since 2021, it has been imposing sanctions on top Taiwanese officials, lawmakers, business owners, and political commentators whom it falsely accuses of being Taiwan independent separatists or spreading disinformation. In June, China even issued the 22 new guidelines that allow its courts to try who they consider to be Taiwan independent separatists with criminal punishment in absentia, while the CCP regime has absolutely no jurisdiction over Taiwan. It clearly attempts to intimidate and silence Taiwanese people, create fear, and blame Taiwan's government for the escalation of cross-strait tensions as part of its illegal warfare. Other than fabricating charges against Taiwanese people, the PRC also manipulates the so-called One China principle and distorts the UNGA Resolution 2758 to claim Taiwan as part of its territory. This is often presented as a legal justification for the use of force. But let's be clear, using force or even the threat of it is a blatant violation of the UN Charter. The PRC's actions don't stop here. It lays claim to the South China Sea and engages in aggressive actions against the neighboring countries, defying international law. This behavior is a clear violation of the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and the 2016 ruling of the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Additionally, it also issued Decree Number 3 of the Coast Guard Law to go against all countries on the first island chain, further undermining their sovereign rights. So I ask, what limits will the PRC respect in its pursuit to impose its will and disregard the rights of others? Moreover, the PRC's global repression could have far-reaching chilling effects on universal rights to freedom of speech, association, and assembly in the free world, where people have been targeted or fear that they too could be next. As the PRC expands its influence globally and takes advantage of open societies, it is imperative that like-minded democracies work together to push back against authoritarian states that threatens our freedom and democratic way of life. This is why today's panel is so critical in raising public awareness and fostering collective efforts. The Hudson Institute, the National Security Institute, and the International Republican Institutes are premier American institutions with a proud tradition of fierce advocacy for freedom and true friendship with Taiwan. Please let me congratulate you to have a great event and thank you for the tremendous work you do. Thank you.